an outreach librarian for Trust Library Services. So I'm going to present to you today our presentation for writing for publication for NMAP. So hopefully you can all see the presentation that I've shared. Let me just get going. So the objectives for the session are the benefits of getting published, how to choose a journal, the process, the writing process, tips for language, style, and referencing, and the publication process. So why is it important to publish early in your career? So it's very good for your CV. It enhances your and the trust reputation. So I know the trust really encourages people to publish as much as they can. It can get your name known by journal editors and just make the process easier as a result. You might receive grants in the future because of your publication history. It could add to your knowledge of the topic as well as adding to the world's knowledge of this topic, and it can provide you with useful feedback. So there are lots of things that you can publish. I mean, I think the thing that people think of most is journal articles, but some other things like higher degree thesis or even chapters from them. That's what I did. I got 2 publications out of I did one from my master's, one from my PhD, where I took a chapter and converted it to an article. I also contributed a book chapter to a book based on the research I had done for my dissertations and my thesis. So that's a really good road to take. You can publish images as long as it doesn't as long as it's not restricted by copyright ownership. Quality improvement projects, review articles, obviously, case reports, audits, letters. You can publish posters, opinion pieces, conference papers, and there's also a site called Best Bets, which I think was developed by someone at MFT, and it's really good place not only to find evidence-based information on a variety of topics, but it's also a really good place to get on the publication ladder and publish your work on that. So I've enclosed the link and have a look at that. So as I mentioned, one of the things that you can publish is case reports, and we do have a subscription to BMJ Case Reports. So in addition to having access to thousands of peer-reviewed case reports from the BMJ, you can also request the fellowship code from us, which would waive the submission fee if you wanted to submit a case report for publication. And the submission fee is, I think, roughly around £200 or so, irregardless if they accept you or not. So excellent opportunity. The submission process is all online and really easy to follow. So I recommend keeping that in mind if you've got an interesting case report that you would like to publish in the future. So choosing a journal. So how to find a journal. So the first thing you want to do is read what's out. If you have a topic in mind of what you'd like to publish, have a look to see not only what is already out there on that topic, or as also look at what journals are publishing articles on that topic. Know your audience. So do you want a very specific audience that might have already some knowledge on that topic that you're going to write about, or is it going to be more of a general knowledge, larger general knowledge kind of based audience? That could also impact the type of journal you're going to choose. You want to have not get your heart set on just one journal. You want to have some backup journals just in case one doesn't come through. Then you have another one that you can apply to. There is, if you've got access to EndNote reference management system, there is a matching tool where you can put your topic in and it will match it to potential journals. Contacts, talk to people that you know if they might have ideas of the types of journals that you could submit to related to the topic that you want to discuss. Also consider impact factors. Journals have impact factors, which kind of shows how many times articles in their journals are referenced by others. So obviously the higher the impact factor, the more prestigious the journal, the harder it is to be published by them. There's also something on Web of Science, which can also help you find potentially relevant journals for your topic. So things to consider. So as mentioned, the audience. So are you, like I said, you want a very specialist knowledge um, audience, someone who's already familiar with what you're going to be discussing, or do you want a wider multi-professional audience? That will not only impact which journals you submit to, but how you write, how much detail you go into. The big generalist journals have large audiences um, and higher rejection rates, so keep that in mind. And also note the difference between what a reader wants and what an editor wants. So a reader wants to be educated about a topic. An editor wants not only wants that for its readers, but it also wants topics that will enhance the journal. So when you start thinking of the journals that you want to maybe submit to, look at the instruction for authors for those journals. Um, they will discuss not only the submission guidelines and things that you need to consider, all the information you would need for publishing with them, but they will also discuss the types of articles that they want to accept. So many journals have specific topics that they might focus on at a specific time. So you want to make sure that the topic that you want to publish is corresponds with what that journal is interested in publishing, and that can change over time. What will the availability of your paper be? Will it be free to read? Will it be like open access, or will there be a charge to readers, a subscription or anything like that? So in order to draw up a list of possibilities, you can ask colleagues for suggestions. Do a search within like databases like PubMed, Medline, Web of Science, CINAHL, to see what types of journals are out there relating to your topic, and look for similar articles. What are people saying about this topic and where are they being published? So here's just some examples of instructions for authors from a couple of journals. So we have the British Journal of Anaesthetists, and we also have the BMJ. So this should be your first point of call when considering a journal to see what the instructions are, what they require, and what topics they are currently looking at. All reputable journals will have some sort of instruction for authors section. So just a little slide just to see some of the journals that staff at MFT have published in. So quite some prestigious ones: Heart, International Journal of Rehabilitation, etc., Gut, BMC Palliative Care. So excellent. So writing the article. So these are some top tips when you start writing. I think starting writing is the hardest bit because it's the unknown. It's a blank page and you're not sure what you want to say or how you're going to say it or where it's going to go. So it's a good idea to create a safe space, an environment where you feel motivated to work in, where you won't have frequent interruptions. Maybe close the door so your cat can't get in and sleep on the keyboard, which is what happens with me. Get support. Find someone who can mentor you, who can support you, proofread you, that you can show your progress to. That's always, I think, really valuable. It can be a colleague, it can be a friend, it can be your sibling. Seek feedback. Um, as I'll talk more on about this, but when we're really close to something, we're writing something, we can lose objectivity. So it's good to have other eyes look at your work and provide feedback of, if it's making sense, how is it looking, and suggestions, etc. And it's also really good to just bounce ideas off of, like just saying out loud, this is what I'm thinking, this is the troubles I'm what I'm running into, and just having someone to discuss it with and saying the things out loud can trigger the thought process and kind of actually, I think, help with the writing process. So questions to ask yourself. So once again, who is likely to be the main reader of your paper on this topic? Specialist knowledge or more multi-professional general knowledge? What will be the point of interest for these readers? What do you want them to take from what you're writing about? Are they likely to be very familiar with this topic, or will it be something that they may or may not know that much about? That will determine how you write it. And what do you want readers to do as a result of reading this paper? What do you hope the outcome will be from this? Also think about what prompted you to write about this. Why this specific topic? What do you want to achieve by writing it? Do you want to change policy? Do you want to educate, etc.? Once again, what research is already available on this topic? Check before you start writing on it, because if there's already a lot on a specific topic, you have to ask yourself, can I contribute anything new to this? Or is there a different angle I can take where people are talking a lot about this, but they're not talking so much about that? And maybe that's where I can focus my writing. What have you learned from this, and what do you hope others will learn from it? What are the benefits of this research? And then what do you plan to do next with that? Do you want to continue with this research, pass it on to someone else, go on to another topic, etc.? So ethics. So if you do reproduce or make use of published material, you need to ask permission for everything that you might use, an image, anything that might, that isn't yours and that you're borrowing from someone else. For things like case reports, case studies, you need to obtain consent from either the patient or the family and carers before you use anything, and you need to anonymize the information as well. If anything you're writing about could constitute negligent care within the organization, you need to consult with a senior person in the organization so you don't get yourself into any trouble. If you are receiving any funding for this, that needs to be declared. So that's something that you need to check with the information for author section of the journal about how and where that you do that, because it could differ from journal to journal. Check to see, this is something you want to do even, at the very earliest stages. Don't wait to the last minute when you've finished everything and you're ready to publish. You found a journal, yeah, they want to accept, but then you find out that there's a cost. So you need to check to see if there's any funding available either from your department or associations like the NIHR. Try to do this at the early onset, so that you know that if there's some journals will charge to publish your article, so you want to make sure that you if there is funding available, that you can get that. And if you're talking about any specific products or tools or anything in connection with your work, try to not mention the commercial name and use the generic name instead, because you don't want it to be a product endorsement. That's not where you're going. So try to not say the commercial name if possible, and use the generic name. So authorship. So the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, in order to be considered as an author on a publication, you need to fulfill all 4 of these criteria. So substantial contributions to the conception and design of the work, drafting the work, revising it, having a part in not only writing it, but proofreading it, making the corrections, contributing to the actual work, being part of the final approval to have it published, and also agree to be accountable for all aspects of the work. That means being agreed to be named as an author on that work. If you or anyone in your group who doesn't meet all these 4 criteria, then you could be listed as in the acknowledgements section, which means that you contributed to this work, but not necessarily within these 4 criteria to be named as an author. So if you're working with other people, so if you're working with a team, you need to decide who is going to be an author before starting the article. So who will agree to be named as an author. You want to make sure that anyone in your team that there isn't any conflict of interest. If it's a large team project, you can have the name of the team as an author. You need to find someone who's going to be your corresponding author, not only who's always available to be contacted by other people in the team, but also contacted by the journal. So you want to have someone who will always be able to check their emails and get back to anyone in a very timely fashion. So once again, contributors who don't meet all 4 criteria can be listed in the acknowledgement section. This could be people who help, like library team, um, admin team, statistics team, IT team, anyone who contributed with getting the project off the ground and published. And it's always nice acknowledging people who assisted. Not only will they be even more eager to assist you in the future, but they did help out, and it's good to acknowledge that. So there are different types of authorship. So there's back scratchings. Sometimes you'll see on some books and some articles the order of authors will switch, because being the first named author is always the most coveted. So sometimes they'll be decisions where, right, you'll be first author this time, and then I'll be first author next time we publish. Toting means including senior colleagues as named authors. This can be useful if they're a very well-known name in that field, and that can help the searchability of your article. And then patronage. So this can include admin, tech roles like IT, the statistics department, and the library. So structuring the article. So once again, always check the instructions for authors, and check throughout time, because as I said, they can change over time. So just always make sure that you know that you keep track of the information for authors section of the journal or journals that you're thinking of publishing in. For most articles, the structure is abstract, introduction, the methods section, the results, and then the conclusion. I always think it's a good idea when you think of the type of paper you want to write. Is it going to be a review article? Is it going to be an umbrella review? Is it going to be a realist review? Is it always, once you decide the type of article or type of publication you want to do, have a look at similar ones to see how they are structured, to get an idea of what they should look like. I think that's always a really helpful thing to do. So when you're looking at your titles, you want to make sure that the title is clear, concise, and interesting, but doesn't declare any conclusions, and also doesn't have any words, slang, acronyms that could confuse people. Because remember, acronyms can be very confusing to people, so be careful about that. We'll talk more about that later on. Also, some people looking at your title and your abstract, English may not be their first language, so you want to make sure it's understandable for everyone. Have 3 to 6 words that you can use for classification, so that that can help with people searching for your articles to find it in the relevant databases. So the title page, once again, have a look at similar articles, especially if you've got some journal ideas that you want to publish in. What do their articles look like? So you should see article title, the author info, any disclaimers, any sources to support, the word count, how many figures and tables you have, and the conflict of interest declaration, which is one of those standard things that you always need to do, even if there is no conflict of interest. So just examples of abstract. So you have the informative abstract, unstructured. This is usually for editorials, essays, opinion pieces, or descriptions. And as you can see here, it is with the author's name, abstract, keywords. And then you've got the structured abstract. This is for original research like trials, systematic reviews, meta-analysis. You've got the summary, the methods, the findings. So abstract's very important. Abstracts is one of the first things that people will see aside from your title, and it can make or break whether they want to continue reading your paper based on what you say in the abstract. So once again, it can depend on the journal, but usually abstracts are between 200 to 300 words. And just make sure that your abstract counts, that you make it very interesting. You want the person to continue on and read your article. So the introduction gives the background and the rationale of the work. Make sure you check for any word limits with the journal that you want to publish in. It states what your article is about and why you have written it, what the study design is, but doesn't yet answer the question. And then with a structured abstract, the methodology, how your study was designed and carried out. Very important not only to let the person know how you reach these conclusions, but also for accountability. Make sure you use the appropriate guidelines and checklists for this. With review articles, a research strategy can sometimes be very useful to include so that they can see, how you arrived at your information, and librarians can help with this. Um, it's always a good idea to write a draft methodology before running the study, before running the study, that is, to spot any mistakes. So literature reviews, it's a summary of all the available literature. That's what a literature review is. I know people get literature review and systematic reviews mixed up. Systematic review is, if we look at the pyramid of research, it's at the top of the pyramid. It looks at all available research to answer a very specific clinical question. A literature review is not that. A literature review looks at the available published material. As you can see on our screenshot of the hierarchy of evidence, systematic reviews at the top, literature reviews are down here. I mean, not saying that this is, not important, but a literature review is a very important way to get your information out, but it is not a systematic review. So make sure you don't confuse the two. This can also do, what you're hoping to write, type of paper you want to write. Have a look at the hierarchy evidence. You can look at appraisal tools like CASP, and you can also book on training sessions for literature searching and critical appraisal with the library if you want more help with that. So the structure. So the results, you want to present and summarize the data in a clear, organized manner so that people can see, very clearly what your results are. You don't want to discuss it yet. Tables and figures can be very useful to, helping with people understand the data that you are presenting. You want to emphasize the important results, but you don't want to overemphasize it, and you don't want to ignore any negative results. Transparency is key. You don't want to try to make results look more robust than they actually are. Be honest, saying we were hoping for this, but because of small turnout or it's very new research, we didn't get the numbers we wanted, but we think that this data still shows that it's worth investigating this issue and more research could be needed. Be transparent. Don't try to make out that the results are heftier than they are. Not only is it not transparent and not terribly honest, but most people do get caught out afterwards. So don't do that. The discussion section interprets the results in context. Once again, don't overstate the importance. Be transparent. That's people respect it more. Discuss any implications for the future. Like, does more research need to be, does this show that more research could benefit information on this topic? You want to appraise your methodology. You want to make sure that you state clearly any restrictions of your art. Once again, be transparent about any restrictions. That could be funding restrictions, small sample size, limited data, just not much out there at this current time because it's maybe a new area. And then you can want to say any recommendations for further study. With regards to case reports, the abstract, you want to set the facts out clearly. Why is this, all relevant information? Why was this specific case interesting? How can it be important for future care of this topic? Why are you writing about it? How do you think it can be useful later on? And what lessons can be learned? So before you submit, oh, I have so many funny stories of like typos. Like I said, when you're working really closely on something, your brain will lie to you. It will lie to you about the typos on your page. You'll see a word link. That's exactly what I wanted to say, and it will be a completely different word. That's why it's having someone else read your work to spot any typos or mistakes is really important. Read it through, read it out loud as well. Print it out, read it out loud, because if your tongue is tripping over a sentence, that will mean that if you're having trouble reading it, the person reading it themselves might find it challenging to read and just lose patience and not want to continue. Um, Be wary of spell checkers. They don't catch everything. This is like a little funny excerpt where everything is spelled correctly, but it's not necessarily the appropriate words. So while spell checkers can show any kind of misspelling words, do not rely solely on that. You want to make sure that you catch any glaring typos or spell checks before you submit for publication. Avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism is actually a lot easier than people think. It's not always necessarily a nefarious deed. You can plagiarize very easily by accident because you think, "Oh, I didn't know that was I needed to reference that." So this is what plagiarism is: an unacknowledged use of someone's work, someone's ideas, someone's written work, visual work, anything that is not originally from you. This includes all written, audio, visual works, even ideas. You don't want to pass someone else's work off as your own. Um, you don't want to cite work that you actually haven't used in the paper. You only want to cite what you actually use. Even paraphrasing someone else's work without citing them is plagiarism. And if you cite yourself from a different article you wrote and you put it in the paper and you didn't reference yourself, that's actually self-plagiarism. Um, Journals will have some sort of plagiarism tool that they will use. So make sure that when in doubt, reference. Unless, the things to, exceptions are common knowledge. Humans have two lungs. World War II ended in 1945. The earth is round. That's common knowledge. You don't need to reference obvious things like that, but you do need to reference anything that's not your original idea. So ways to avoid plagiarism: cite and reference as you go. Keep track of all your references, not only for your reference section afterwards, but that, as you're using them in your paper, make sure that when you go to check all your references, you know exactly where that reference came from and who you need to reference. There are reference management tools that can be very useful, like EndNote, Mendeley, RefWorks, Zotero as well. Many of them are free. Not only can you organize all your kind of references that you're using, but it can also create the reference list, which will save you a lot of time. Follow the exact spellings of titles, even if there's a misspelling. Weirdly as it may seem, don't change anything in the original reference. Never change the order of the authors, and never guess part of the reference. If you absolutely cannot find the reference for the life of you, then don't use it, unfortunately. So just keep track of all your references as you go. So the submission process. So once again, go back to the journal's guidelines of the submission process. Check with any terms and conditions that you might need to be aware of: the licensing, the copyright, the picture format requirements. Authors may be asked to assign copyright or get exclusive license to publish. So make sure you understand what you're getting into. If you are getting some kind of funding or grant, it might stipulate a certain type of publication. It might stipulate that the journal that you choose must have open access. So make sure that you know that when you do get funding, make sure that there's, any caveats, like, we're giving you this funding, but these are the types of publications that you need to submit to, for instance, open access. The journal or the editor should stipulate to you any time frames for submission, but don't be surprised if it takes a very long time. It can be a very slow process, and oftentimes they'll get back to you going, right, this looks really good, but we would like you to make some changes or corrections here. That's very normal. So you might have to do some little editing in your work and then resubmit. The articles, and especially with a lot of the prestigious articles, most of the time they are peer reviewed, but I think that will be stipulated to you. And only submit to one journal at a time. So remember that. There's just a bit of information about open access and what it means. It can be much more expensive to submit to, but it means that it has a wider audience, more people can access it. So it is quite highly coveted, but even if the journal you're submitting to isn't open access, that's okay. Getting published is still the main thing. And the more you publish, then the more options you have later on. Useful resources for open access. So you can Sherpa Romeo. It can allow you to find out what journals are open access and what their policies are. There's also directory of open access journals to see which articles are open access, so you just have an idea and how to submit to them. Be wary of predatory publishers who promise that, yes, I'll publish your article, just send £3,000 in the post and we'll get that published, and then you never hear from them again. So there's an article, might be slightly out of date, but gives guidance on how to establish a journal's credibility. Another way is just do a quick look on maybe Google Scholar with the journal name, and maybe put peer review after it to see if it's a peer reviewed journal. Look at their website. When was the last updated? Who are the contact details? Who's it affiliated with? And also do a search for it in some of the healthcare databases. Is it indexed in PubMed? Is it indexed in CINAHL? Is it indexed in Embase? If it's not indexed in anywhere, maybe be hesitant. Also ask around to colleagues if they've, have you heard of this journal? Is it reputable? Other useful resources for publishing. Ryan can be very useful. If you're doing any kind of like systematic review where you've got hundreds of um, results that you need to screen and go through. Ryan it's a free site and it can help with the screening process and save you loads and loads of time. You can also, there's also ORCID where you can get a unique identifier that you can put next to your name so that it won't confuse your identity with another researcher who has a similar name. So both of those are quite good and free. We also do have further reading. We have tons and tons of books on the writing process, research process, how to write a paper. This is a particularly excellent book, How to Write a Paper. I think we've got that both in print and electronically, but this is just a small selection. Check our catalog and also come to the library if you need any specific help with this. We are always happy to help. So that's all for that. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.